mentioned earlier?
Okay.
No, the community preservation stuff.
All right. All right, call the meeting to order at 6:01. My name is Stephanie Slish. I'm the planning board chair. We don't have an alternate chair right now, but I have Jimmy Tarr all the way at the end here, Bob Wagner, myself, and Paul Dostal. And then we've got our administrative assistant, Gerard Bueno. I don't have a copy of the agenda here, Gerard.
Sure.
Oh, okay, got it. Cool. So we're going to open the meeting, this part for public forum. So anyone here who's not on the agenda but would like to speak to us to a particular issue, now it's time to speak. I think you both are on the agenda. So with that, I'll make a motion to close public forum.
Motion to close the floor?
Second?
And
I'll
any
second
discussion?
it.
Oh, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public forum is closed. Now we're talking to about approval not required for 99 and 97 Prospect Street. George Bucali here. Cool. Yeah, do you mind sitting in front here next to that microphone? And kind of explaining what you'd like to do here.
Well, 99 Prospect Street only had 100 feet frontage, and 97 had 236. So what I did to make the house more attractive is that I took 30 feet off 97 and put it onto 99.
So that just makes, yeah, the frontage is,
The frontage on 99 will be 130, and 97 will be 206. I had it surveyed and there's new bounds put in.
That's still not enough, but we're 200 feet of frontage.
yeah, we require 200 feet of frontage.
Yeah.
And so is it just like on your end cosmetically giving them more frontage, this parcel more frontage, or I'm just curious to.
All the way back to the end. I think you have prints there that
Yeah.
show.
So
It goes back 600 and some feet, I think.
So the previous parcel was a pre-existing non-conforming use because it pre-existed.
Originally that lot was 75 feet back when the
Right.
Duga family bought that.
Uh-huh.
And they bought another 25 feet off of the Sheehan property. I forget when that was, but I think it's on there. And so that gave them 100-foot frontage. And then Paul Duga bought the Sheehan property.
And then you want to be able to subdivide and sell it off separately.
I already have both pieces sold.
You know, I wonder if by doing that, it actually,
She's making one a non-conforming.
it makes it negates the pre-existing non-conforming status of the original lot. Really, to be able to subdivide, I mean, you had two separate lots, right?
Yeah, they're both owned by the same person.
Right, but you had two separate lots, 97 and 99.
Yes.
And 97 only had 100 feet of frontage.
No, 99.
the other way around, yeah.
99
had 100
feet of frontage. But that pre-existed our zoning. So it was basically a pre-existing non-conforming use. To add to that now and then have it be a new lot, actually, I think,
It's not a new lot, I don't think.
well,
It's making the lot more attractive by giving it an extra 30 feet of frontage.
but I think that might actually negate the pre-existing non-conforming use, and we require 200 feet of frontage for a lot.
I realize that. That's why 97 still has 206 foot.
Yes, I know, but it may actually then, you might be better off leaving it the way it was.
You're saying
what I
that,
think.
that if he keeps it the way it was, it's still a non-conforming
Use,
existing lot,
right.
which would allow you to not have to jump through hoops to get, to sell it, correct?
Right, well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's really a question for the attorney if
Yeah.
indeed,
It's still a non-conforming lot because it only has 130 feet frontage now instead of 100.
right, but
This like triggers
it triggers the.
the current zoning or whatever,
Right.
potentially.
Because it's basically, right now, it's a non-conforming lot with 100 feet of frontage. And to add to it is actually, in other words, if you're going to add to it, you should be adding another 100 feet of frontage to make it comply with
Conforming
current.
lot.
I realize that, but what's that going to do to 97 then? If I
Well,
took,
I don't disagree with you. It might be better just leaving it the way it is.
Yeah, this is something we might have to bring to the attorney about, just to double check this.
Because right now, it's sort of it's grandfathered.
Mhm.
yes.
And to add to it is sort of eliminating that grandfather status. And you would need to then bring it up to code, which would be 200 feet of frontage, which you can't do. There isn't enough frontage between the
Split
two
it up
lots.
twice.
It just seems like common sense, to make something a little bit more attractive to the buyer.
I think we have to ask Tom.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to table it for now to just double check with our lawyer, just so the attorney, so we're make sure we're doing this
So I
correctly.
have to wait another month before you make a decision?
Yeah, generally our meetings once a month, so.
It just seems like common sense to make the lot a little more attractive to the owner.
No, I understand, and I understand your reasoning. Like, I would want to live in a house that has a property that has more frontage too than this, but we have to just make sure that we're doing everything legally correctly. And I understand, and just as you got it all mapped out, surveyed and everything too correctly. So
Now, when will you talk to the lawyer? In the next month or in the next?
yeah, no, I
week?
would send an email probably tomorrow and share the design plans and stuff like that. Because
So then maybe you could give me an answer before another month goes by?
generally we have, well, our meetings currently are every month. So if there's,
Question is, could we vote on this pending approval of the lawyer? I think that's what he's looking
Yeah.
That
for.
sounds like common sense.
That's
yeah,
what
if we
you're looking
condition
for.
it or something like
We could
that.
do that.
And if not, then and if there's some issues, then we'd have you back to discuss those potentially next month.
We could do that.
I think that's the simplest solution to this. And
So, yeah,
then
so-
the lawyer makes the final decision.
Yeah, so
Right.
we could make a motion to approve the approval not required subdivision as proposed pending
Legal,
legal approval.
Mhm. Legal approval that
Right.
this doesn't.
And this would need to, we would have to sign this anyway,
Mhm.
because we would have to sign the chart. So until those are signed and can be filed at the registry, nothing happens. So,
So if we were to vote on that condition this today, I would reach out to him tonight or tomorrow. And it takes probably a couple business days for him to respond because he's the town attorney of a couple different towns. So I would say within a week, we should have an answer.
Yeah, can you send me an email when you
Yep.
find out? So
Mhm. Yeah, and then we'll let you know, yeah.
Yeah.
And if it goes well and he says it's allowed, then we would have to sign the Mylar copies and everything like that. And we would do that shortly after, we rallied the troops to do that, so.
Okay.
Does that sound?
Yeah.
Anyone want to make that motion then? Or have any more discussion on this?
well, I think I'll make the motion that we approve the approval not required on 99 and 97 Prospect Street pending concurrence by the town attorney.
I second it.
Any discussion? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll be in touch.
the
Apologize.
only
if that-
thing I say is you have a chance to be a personal representative, turn it down. Have a good night.
Thank
I've heard
Thank
that,
you.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. So have a night.
Have you had a request like that before? Something like with an A and R?
No,
Not like
I've never had, I never recall having somebody with two non-conforming lots wanting to make one a,
Well, yeah, so I mean, we have had situations where they've made the other lot conform with the new 200 feet of
yeah.
frontage, but not add to a lot
And keep it a
and
non-conforming.
keep it non-conforming and want to continue to have that grandfathered status.
I know, we're all like, okay. Okay, cool. Just double checking
Yeah.
that.
Well, the
don't think we
grandfather
would.
status really helps him enormously. So, I mean,
Where- where it's-
we need to convince him that jeopardizing that is going to jeopardize his
If
project.
it's
Right,
an issue,
right,
right?
yeah.
I think he got that
Yeah.
at the end.
All right, the next piece of the agenda, we have an informal discussion about potential subdivision at 38 Plain Road.
No,
Nope.
I own 38 Plain Road.
Okay. Technically, when it's splitting a parcel, it's technically called a subdivision. So if that's,
Okay. I purchased
thank you.
33 acres on Plain Road, map 215, block 16. Right now, I grow corn on it. And I'm looking to put a subdivision in.
Where on Plain Road is it? Past,
Sorry, we only have one copy.
past the houses,
Yeah, it's just past the last house,
on the left or the right?
left on the west side.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
It used to be Chuggy's, maybe?
No, it was Barbara Bunks.
Oh, sure.
That across from, as far down as a solar field?
No, it's more south from there. Yes,
We're sorry, we're going to kind of look at this all here.
correct.
So can you just describe in a nutshell what you'd like to do?
For
I was
the,
thinking of tentatively putting in a subdivision, 8 building lots. There's 850 feet of frontage for the building lots. I own 1,270 feet of frontage on Plain Road on that lot, on the 33 acres. I have a 10-inch water main going across the face of the property, and there's power to the property.
So wait a second, the frontage
here, I'm gonna just-
of the parcel you're talking about is 850 feet?
For what I plant crops on, yes. The total frontage from pin to pin, north to south, is 1,270. I have the Mylar of the survey.
Some of it forested? still?
Yes, yes. So right now, the open acreage is 8 acres
Mhm.
that I tentatively plant on right now. And NRCS has satellite imaging of the properties I do plant on, so you have an idea of what it looks like.
Well, you have a couple, I think, ways that you could go. You could either pursue a straight
Yeah.
subdivision under our subdivision code, or you could look at the open space development provisions of our zoning bylaw. And it might actually perhaps work better for you to look at the open space development bylaw, because you could put in the lots and also then have some of the land remain for agricultural purposes.
Okay, correct.
So those would be the research that you'd want to do. Because, you know, you've got 800 feet of frontage on Plain Road, which is enough for
4 lots.
4 lots right off the road
Correct.
with 200 feet of frontage. To get your other 4 lots, you're either going to have to put it in a subdivision road or consider the open space development bylaw.
Correct. The hand-drawn map I gave you shows a 22-foot road going
Uh-huh.
to a cul-de-sac,
Yep.
which then that would give it 8 building lots on the open,
Oh, I see where you go. Gotcha.
Mhm.
be
That's a
the
cul-de-sac.
roadway be on the south side going
Right, I
west.
gotcha.
How would lots 5 and 6, they would, one of them would come off, 6, their driveway would come off the cul-de-sac?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And And then 6, 7, and 8 would be on the cul-de-sac. it
Correct.
looks
Yeah,
like.
so 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be the frontage
Plain road.
Huh?
Correct. On Plain Road,
Yep.
yes.
off Plain Road. And then you,
5 and 6, 5 would be off of your road,
Yes, we'll be off the cul-de-sac.
and then
road, yes.
3 more off of the cul-de-sac, 6, 7, and 8.
5, 6, yes, yes.
Okay.
yeah, so 5 would come off of this, and then
Right.
6,
Yeah, do you wanna see
7,
that?
and 8 would
Right.
come off of that. Yeah, so the other thing you'd, again, would want to look at is the open space development bylaw, which might reduce some of your overall expenses, particularly related to the road.
Yeah, and it
All right, so
allows
road-
for a little smaller building frontage needed for the building lots in order, and if you preserve some of the land as open space, there's a little bit of incentives there for that if you
Okay.
choose that route.
So I'll look at open space by law.
Yeah, so that's,
I know I'm trying to,
I didn't bring my book with me tonight.
it's in our
wasn't-
zoning bylaws. I know our subdivision bylaws are separate outside of our bylaws, but our open space development bylaws in our zoning bylaws.
6.20, 6.20.
And so that's available on the website, or you can get a copy from the clerk.
All right.
Yeah, and it's kind of a way to try to, can preserve some of the aesthetic of the farmland also, which could be a draw for potential people who want to live in the area too, in that
Right.
area too.
All right, sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah, and then,
So,
yeah, kind of putting a plan together and filling out all the materials for that and presenting something more formal to us for sure.
This is a good way to start.
well, that's all I just
Yeah,
wanted to ask.
this is a real good way to start.
Get a direction.
Yeah, and those are your two options. So yeah, just standard subdivision and then open space development bylaw, which, yeah.
what soils have you got out there? Do you know?
What soils do I have?
Yeah, what,
It's light, sandy.
okay,
I have, NRCS has also gave me form there for the wetland setbacks from the edge of where I plant. You'll see there's 145, 15, 25 feet differences
right.
on different edge lines from what the state requires.
Yeah, so you'll need to look at and map out like wetland areas and all of that, because you might be required to go to the Conservation Commission as well.
I already contacted conservation and we're not anywhere near wetlands, so they don't have any. they
Jurisdiction?
waived- Yeah, they said it's okay.
Okay. So yeah, I would highly recommend looking both at the subdivision regs and then the open space development
Okay.
section.
All right, well, thank you.
How high is the water table out there? You know?
Right now?
On the road?
No,
So have you had any of this perked?
no, I'm gonna do that next.
Okay.
But,
Sandy saw it should perk pretty easy.
yes. Everything below, this is at road grade, all this property.
Uh-huh.
And everything below it is 8 feet, 10 feet, it's like a washout when all river bottom, we know that that's what our whole area is down here, so.
Right.
Yeah, this is all very high, dry land. We're good?
We're
Thank
good?
you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is an alternate chair vote.
Yeah, so we talked about this, 2 meetings ago? I've been the alternate chair
Right.
since Stephanie assumed the chair of the committee. And then prior to that, while I was chair,
I was the
Stephanie
alternate.
was the alternate
Right.
chair with the idea that that would be an opportunity
Speed up.
for the two of us to work together as she then moved into the chair. And that seemed to work very well.
Mhm.
So we talked at 2 meetings ago without making a decision about who would then be the next chair in waiting, if you will, and be the alternate chair for the upcoming fiscal year, with the idea that they would then move into the chair at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Mhm.
So we need a nomination from someone other than myself, because I've done it now. And
I would make a recommendation for our 2 newest members so that they could gain that experience. either Mr. Tar or Mr. Poshik.
And it's really like, it's like, if I have to not be here, then they run the meeting and maybe chat with them about particular issues that come up that need to be discussed in between meetings.
Well, I guess I'm the retired one, so seems like all fingers are headed in this direction.
All heads looking that way. Don't feel forced,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
I don't feel forced. I'm just not good at that part of the job, but I'll learn it.
Practice, right? You know,
Well, I'll make a motion to nominate Jimmy Tar as the alternate chair for the current fiscal year.
I'll second it.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congrats, Jimmy.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, time to, well, any other board's discussion or updates for anyone that's,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So both Stephanie and I participated in a preliminary discussion with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission about the open space development bylaw rewrite that they're doing with us and a couple other towns. Have you heard anything more from them?
nope, I've had to be very proactive in my questions. Yeah, because technically the funding was supposed to kick in at the beginning of this fiscal year, which, so
Yeah.
ever since July, ever since June, July, I've been like, hey, what's up? And they said, oh, we're going to kick off in October. And then like all of a sudden, Bob and I got a last minute invitation to a meeting that was like a couple days later
Yeah.
for, it wasn't necessarily a kickoff with those particular municipalities, but they said that was then coming in a couple weeks, and it's been a couple weeks and we haven't
Yeah.
heard anything. So I'm concerned only because the funding cycle happens with the fiscal year, and what happens if they don't move quick enough, and then this next fiscal year comes and we're at the same situation we were a couple years ago
Well,
related to
yeah.
this.
Especially if we want to do something for Maytown meeting.
Right, and they laid out kind of a timeline that they would have proposed language April, May, but to me, that doesn't seem like we can't get on the warrant then if
Mhm.
that's their timeline. Because that would need to happen sooner than that.
Is there not funding? Is that why they're? is there-
No, they have the funding.
the
It's
funding,
just,
but
we're
they're
not
just-
really sure what, I thought maybe you might have heard and if there was an
I
update
keep
there,
on
but
following up, wondering, am I not be getting on the emails or
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
no, I haven't gotten anything either.
Yeah, because the reason why we're looking at, we were trying to
Right.
update our open space development bylaw a couple of years ago, and then last minute when the attorney or whatever looked at it, which again, something we would have to try to be
Mm-hmm. Right.
proactive about this
Right.
time.
Yep. I
Um,
remember that.
they pulled it. It was probably 2 years ago, two
Yeah,
town
that's
meetings
right.
ago.
It was.
And kind of the reason why we were wanted to update it is because only like one person has ever taken advantage of it. Was that correct?
Well, we thought that maybe Mr. What's his name?
Right,
That's right.
Jonathan. Wright.
Jonathan Wright might take advantage of it on the Jericho Road property, but other than there's only been used one other time.
So
Right.
looking into that property, Chris Aubrey's?
He was at one
He
point.
was at one point, yeah. We actually, Steph and I and Mark Gillot had, from the Open Space Committee, had at least one on-site visit with them, and then we
Yeah, the
arranged.
Grodnicks too.
That's
who-
right, and yeah,
the
Steph
farmers,
arranged
yeah.
for him to meet with the Zagrodniks who farm that land on a rental basis and then also farm the nearby land.
Uh-huh.
No, nothing came of it,
Yeah, so yeah, in general,
yeah.
updating this would hopefully make it a little more attractive as the first option instead of the traditional subdivision.
Right.
As we want to try and protect some of that, considering we have pretty large lots for creating a subdivision like that,
Mhm.
It seems to me that the idea of the open space really should be something that potential developers are looking positively at, as opposed to getting stuck with.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there
You
are
know,
there
you
are
know,
studies too that say that, if your property is next to farmland, that's actually, a better selling feature than just
Right,
having it
and
be a
then-
giant
so then-
subdivision
Then you have the ability to
or woodland.
adjust the size of the lot a little bit
Right.
by the terrain maybe, or the geography, or the, whatever.
And also updating it too, so that there might be extra benefits or incentives for them if they make them more affordable, like at least one of the lots affordable, then
Mhm.
you can make the frontage even, because right now we have really poor affordable housing stock right now, I'd say.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we're only at 3% of the 10% target that the state has
right.
for us.
Yeah.
And, something like a traditional subdivision would not,
Yeah.
would not help with those numbers.
No,
If anything,
no,
they
not
would
at
hurt
all.
those.
Yeah.
So.
To exacerbate them, it's not anything.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah. And then there was also conversation about making the open space development bylaw more of like the de facto option instead of a traditional subdivision, and having to do a little bit more to go for the traditional subdivision than for the open space development bylaw. So we try to make that be the standard as opposed to a traditional subdivision. So,
And the carrot seems to be, fairly substantial.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Because
Oh,
The idea of the carrot and the stick, I mean, we're giving them a pretty good, the process is giving them a pretty good advantage over the restrictions that otherwise might limit what they can do.
right, and it's the cost of putting in that subdivision road. You can
Right.
make that smaller,
Yeah.
the less infrastructure you have to put in. Correct. Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. So,
Cost of
yeah,
The house though, is gonna, I know building material has come down a little bit, but it's still pretty high.
yeah.
So yeah, we're working on that.
So we'll,
Whenever we hear.
so we'll, I guess, have you reached out to them recently? Because I wonder.
Because I think we should now. Yeah.
Okay.
I can. Yeah. So I'll follow up with my to-dos from this meeting. Follow up with the town council about the 97 and
Yeah.
99 Prospect Street, and then with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission on this.
Okay, great. And because we're hoping that we can also engage them on eventually a update of the master plan, right?
Yes, and I don't know if Gerard has any more intel into this, but the master plan update.
I think we're just trying to work on, Marlene's trying to work on getting a committee formed. I think she believes the first step, trying to garner some, some sort of interest for a committee.
Mhm.
And then she was going to get back with you about the funding, some of the fundings and grants that will be available.
Yeah, so when I reached out to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission asking about that, it was a lot of those grants that we could then apply for are starting July 1st or January 1st, so calendar year. So there's that grant cycle, and 2 of the 3 grants I think that he recommended, they have to have some sort of match from our town funding. So it's something that we would have to probably work with the select board on, and requesting those funds be made available so that we can get that going as well.
Sometimes they also give you credit for what's known as in-kind
Mhm.
contribution, mainly volunteer time. The people that are on the committee are volunteering their
Yeah.
time, and that can be counted towards that in-kind, that match.
Yep. And so based on the last conversation I had with Marlene, it seemed like the ball was kind of in her court to kind of figure out the next steps, and then she would let us know. But I'm, basically ready when a committee can come together to kind of work on, because once the committee comes together, we can work on creating those funding sources and working on asking for those funding sources and submitting those grants.
Okay.
I also think she's looking for some language. I don't know if you have any language from 20 years ago. How a committee was established.
I mean, they've made like the 350th committee. I would just maybe use, they make kind of committees. The select board is the one that needs to make the committee, I believe. Yeah.
Trying to research some language that was given when the original committee.
It would probably be more of like an more of a committee that would do most of like the funding. Because then there's like 2 different parts, right? There's like the actual creating of the master plan, creating like if you want to survey the community or whatever, and then there's the zoning bylaw piece of the master plan. So I guess I would want to know like how much do those committees work I assume they work together, but like how do those 2 separate kind of functions of the master plan work together? And I don't know if you remember any of that.
Well, so when we did it the last time, the same committee that worked on the master plan then worked with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to update the zoning to reflect the
Changes.
So it's all the
changes.
same committee.
Yeah, well, and it was over at least a year and a half or more
Yeah, it was
Probably
I thought it
2
was a
years.
couple of years.
Yeah, and so some people rotated off because it was just, their bandwidth just couldn't handle
Mhm.
keeping with it. But it was essentially the same group.
Right. And then there'd probably be input from the planning board and other committees too
So
on,
there was
on on the
Yes,
draft or whatever.
right. So there was a planning board representative on the master plan committee
Mhm.
the entire time. And then I think somebody from the zoning board of appeals as well.
Mhm.
So,
Probably all, like, I'd imagine like from all the different, like Concom would probably be someone
Yeah, I think
maybe
it-
on there, and Ag Commission.
well,
too.
we didn't have an ag commission at the
Okay.
time. The ag commission was actually a recommendation of the master plan was to create an ag commission.
Oh,
So that was
interesting.
one of the outcomes. Yeah, I remember, there was a woman who chaired it initially, and then she rotated off, and Daryl Williams actually ended up being the final, when we finally completed it, he was the chair. And I think he was just representing himself and the farming community, generally speaking. But yeah, there was a planning board member. I think it was Mr. Malloy.
Could have been. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
before I was on the board. but
I'm almost
remember,
positive it was Mr. Malloy, and then there was a ZBA member, and yes, Conservation Commission.
I think Frank Abarno was on it. Dave Dulong was on it.
Yeah, Dave was. Yep,
Um,
and Frank from the school.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right.
I mean, there was a lot of,
And then there were general public members as well.
right,
Mhm.
right, people
Yeah.
from the.
Mhm.
And we did a survey. We actually had community meetings around where we were gathering input. And then once we had the basics or the basis of a master plan, we put together back then, it was a overhead projector presentation. And we arranged to meet with various community groups. So like the Council on Aging, the churches
Yeah.
and their organizations, the library, Friends of the Library, and we went around and made presentations so that we could get the information out to as
There was
many
a
people.
townwide survey asking people what they thought saw the vision for
Right, exactly.
Hatfield with the, open space, the
Mhm.
farmland, the
Mhm.
rural community, and
Exactly. Yeah.
good
so-
schools and good
Yeah.
low taxes, but
Yeah.
it's like one of these things. We want everything, but we don't want to
Yeah.
pay for it.
Don't want to
That's
pay
why
for
the-
it.
that's why the
Like
data-
other
Right, right.
communities want
Yeah.
all the
Well, that's why you
amenities.
justify with the data, right? If,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to be or trying to creative solutions to do
Yeah,
what
so
the
there
town
were,
wants
there were
or the
actually
community
two,
wants.
there were two sources of input from the general public. One was a mail survey, I think is you're referring
I
to.
remember that.
And then we did these community meetings where we actually solicited input on a variety of different issues. And I remember one was at the where the
Freer?
where the Lutheran church
Barbecue,
the barbecue
Yeah,
used to
Holy
be.
Smokes was.
Holy Smokes was. It was
Oh,
held
wow.
there. It may have still been the church at the time. And then there was one, at one of the elementary schools or maybe at Smith Academy. And there was one here at Town Hall. And we spread it around so that
Mhm.
people could attend. There was one up in North Hatfield. So,
Well, hopefully we can get that going because it's they say to do it every 10 years, and it's going to be 20 next year or
yeah,
something like
that's
that.
right.
And then it's going to take 2 or 3 years probably to get it all, all
Abs-
figured out. So,
Absolutely.
and when you you need to update it when the technology you're talking about was overhead.
Yeah, it was overhead project. Yeah, it was because I had access to overhead projectors from my job, and so we put together the sheets and
Those are
we brought the
antiques now.
projectors. Yeah, I know. You can buy them at flea markets for a lot of money, just like flip phones.
Has there been any appeals on what we did the last time?
Not that I'm aware
Theirs.
of.
No.
No, and that the 20-day period is
Right.
probably over.
Right.
So yeah.
Speaking of last meeting,
Mhm.
we have our minutes to approve.
Mhm.
If anyone's had a chance to look at them,
Yeah, I read them last night.
Yeah, I did.
I did too.
Yeah.
Any edits or anything like that? If not, we can make a motion.
I did.
Motion with the edits.
Well, I had a question before we make the motion. Have we heard anything back from the solar array people?
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
I followed up with him after we talked, and he seemed like he communicated back to his investors, and it didn't. I don't know. Well, it didn't
Didn't
seem
add
like.
up for them?
I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. I'd be surprised if we hear back from him. I guess based on just like the feeling of that phone call.
Mhm. Okay.
There's still a lot of solar credits in Massachusetts that, I thought that program was.
The
being
problem
cut out
is
or
that
not?
it like they need to update it or vote on it every year, so there's no guarantee that it's
Gonna
gonna
happen
still be
like next year or this year.
or what
whatever.
the actual terms will be. So yeah, and each time the terms kind of change. So that yeah, that's my understanding of it as someone who got solar last year.
The one thing that I would just point out to the committee, this particular property, as we know, they were talking about the property that's zone light industrial, and then going up above
This
onto
is the
the
one next to the,
where the Scapes
Where the Scapes building.
Scapes building is going in, the one we
Office is gonna be-
approved,
okay, yeah.
right next door. And so that's a second growth forest. That was a Christmas tree operation for many, many years. And so that portion of the property that's zone light industrial, with the Scapes going in next door, with the sewer line going in, we have to assume at some point soon, someone's going to clear cut that property
Yeah.
to put in something, whether it's a solar field
Right.
or a building like Scapes or something like
The light
that.
industrial piece, the flat piece.
The light
yeah.
industrial, the flats part. The property up above is a different story.
Right.
I mean, that's zone rural residential, probably would never get developed. It's so remote, so rugged. But that property that's down on Route 5 and 10, I mean, at some point, someone's going to come in and want to do
Wanna
something
buy it,
there.
yeah.
And make sense,
Right.
because that's
Especially now with the infrastructure.
right,
being
with the
put in
infrastructure
place.
there. Right, exactly. Yep. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
So the
That
sewer line is going to the Whately line, or
And actually, it's
Was it
only supposed to
stopping
stop
before-
at Chestnut Street
It's-
there, but
oh,
I
just
think
there,
they're
okay.
allowing the couple of those to tie, like Scapes is tying in there, and it's
yeah,
right after
Scapes
that.
is going to tie in, and depending upon what if it's a solar field, you don't need sewer.
right.
But if it's a business and having sewer is really important, they may pay to have it extended if it just needs to go up one more lot.
Right.
I mean,
When I went to the sewer from my house, because there's no sewer on Prospect Street,
mhm.
which is crazy, but that's neither here nor there. So when my septic system failed for the second time, Wally Thayer came in and we went to the Polish Club. That's where the sewer is, the nearest sewer.
Mhm.
And I paid to go down my driveway on the Prospect Street, around the corner and down 22 feet to the hookup down there. And it was well worth my while to pay for that to happen. And it will probably be well worth somebody else's while if they're sort of adjacent to it to
Yeah.
spend the money. It's not
Right.
that expensive. And the septic routine, is so tenuous. We'll
Mhm.
say a year like this year, there were probably a lot of septic systems that failed this year
Mhm.
that are failing right now,
Right.
because of the vast amount of groundwater. So somebody's going to want to spend the money to connect there. And they're not going to go a mile, but
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it cost me $8,000.
Well, this won't be much because it's just the next lot over.
Right.
But again, if someone's putting something in there that involves people,
They're
being
gonna
on
wanna
the
do that.
septic line is going to
Absolutely.
make sense. But if
Absolutely.
if it's a solar field, that's a different
Right.
story. But
Right.
I guess after the meeting was over and I was thinking about it, I was like, well, we were talking about clear cutting. Well, clear cutting up in the woods up above is one thing, but clear cutting that property is probably going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
At some point, because
Right on the road.
it's right on the
Yeah.
road.
Was there not 15 acres that's going to be open that close to the road? I thought part of that was opened.
No, there's
Oh,
very
it's pretty
little of
much-
that.
Pretty much wooded.
It's
I
pretty
got to
wooded,
drive
yeah.
by there.
Yeah,
again.
there's a little old
Yeah, there's a little house there.
house there. I always thought of it as a cabin, but it actually was a home. And then the property in the back is very heavily wooded, but it's
Okay.
all old Christmas trees, pine trees.
And their proposal was to not even start the solar until behind that house anyway.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, and that's what I asked. It's like, is there any rhyme or reason to why? I think we asked that, like,
Yeah.
why you just decided to put the solar where it was, and they just kind of were putting something together to show us. So.
Right. So anyway, well, we haven't heard back from them, so. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 3rd. Everyone able to go?
All good for me. Yep.
For sure.
Any other comments? Otherwise, motion to adjourn?
I just had a question. Anybody hear any feedback on Mr. Lee's? I was talking to someone in Amherst and they told me that there was a problem out there
With that parcel?
with that parcel. in
Which
terms-
parcel is this?
The one we
The one
approved?
where 160, I think was it 164? Where Full Tilt Auto went in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The guy who came
They
to
said
try
that
and,
that sale hadn't gone through because there was some environmental issues. There might have been some contaminated
Well,
tank or something buried. And I said, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. So I don't know if that was rumor or whatever, but I said, I'll check into it. And no one here has heard anything. So
yeah, what we were told is that this permit was contingent on the sale. So unless
Right.
something else happened, and we were told from Concom that everything was, Kosher.
Okay,
Above the
right.
board, yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
So maybe his lending institution required a phase one assessment, environmental assessment, and
Oh.
they may have found an old tank there.
if I remember correctly, one of the permits mentioned needing to be the removal of the tank, of some sort of tank, if they were ever to sell or leave. So I don't know if that was,
So, yeah, I mean, a phase one would have picked up that. So that may be part of the issue.
Huh.
Huh. And
Yeah.
do we know, have we heard anything more from Black Birch about them coming in because they were going to talk about coming in after their season was over?
yeah, we
If-
said kind of like
Coming
we,
in about their functions?
Yeah,
yeah, we said we
updating
would
their-
kind of reach out. I think they're in the middle of harvesting right now. So I
yeah,
would,
okay.
maybe reach out in a month or two and kind of just ask them how everything went and just check in.
Okay,
But we haven't heard anything on our end complaint wise. So at least that I'm aware of.
okay. All right.
Have we had any information from Kyle about how we're doing with some of the problems that have been around? Like Omasta down the street?
You can ask him.
How? How to find them? And get
Give
them
him
to
a call.
respond?
Give him a call.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned at 6:43.
Have you noticed there's less trucks down there?